Okay, Shaleen title, it's equal access. Thank you so much for your time, as always.
Always great to be here, Seth.
So if people were calling, some people were calling legalization Prohibition 2.0, are we talking about Prohibition 3.0 now with the banning and the...
I think there is a temptation to go right back to the principles of prohibition that we know don't work, but to say, oh, there's a problem, let's immediately ban because we think that will stop people from using, I guess.
So
But
is that
unfortunately,
what
that
it is?
doesn't coincide with reality.
Yeah, and is that because this is called equal access, right? And so is it, I'm cutting off what I am in charge of as far as access, so they won't be able to access. But the
So for
reason that we
me,
legalized was to increase safety and increase testing for access so that we had safe patient access.
and that's exactly what it is the whole point of regulation is for this exact situation. And I know people have felt that the rollout in Massachusetts has been slow. One of the reasons is we spent 2 years making a system where every product is tested, every product is tracked. If a product does cause a problem, we will be able to address it and have that control. And so it does feel very Twilight Zone to lose that ability as soon as there's a product that may potentially be dangerous.
So we could actually root out the problem here if it were in the legal system. So getting to that question, that direct question, has there been any vape identified that is within legal cannabis in Massachusetts, medical or otherwise, that is causing these problems? Have we identified that?
So in Massachusetts, no, not yet. It is certainly possible, but no, not at this time. I'm aware of the cases in Oregon, so I would say that it's possible. And if that's what the evidence ends up showing, you will see an immediate regulatory response. But as of this time, I think the preliminary evidence shows it's more likely that the products are coming from the illicit market, which is why I'm so concerned and why I think it puts more lives at risk to send people right back to that source.
To that actual source. So we're literally metastasizing the issue by banning legal vapes. We're pushing people towards the problem.
I think so. I think so. And another problem with this ban is that it lumps together all vaping products. So that includes e-cigarettes, that includes any THC product vapes, that even includes dry flower vaporizer products, which are not implicated in these illnesses at all. And I think that sort of overreach, which none of the other 49 states have done, leaves patients, especially, and people who may have nicotine addiction, with very few options.
So let's get to the cannabis side of this with all due respect to other vapes. It turns out vitamin E acetate should not be in your lungs. And now we know that, right?
Well, it's obviously I'm familiar with that situation. It is early, I think, to be identifying any particular additive or ingredient, but I do think this has shed a light on the need for disclosure, for safety standards, and for very heavy regulation of these products.
Okay. So there we are right back at the beginning, which is if we regulate these products, we'll be able to track and trace these products. And so we can root out the problem and the cause.
Yes.
What would you do, I guess, if it was Governor Shaleen title? What exactly, in other words, because some of this is kind of making sure the constituency feels safe, right? There is that kind of soft piece here. So how would you accomplish that goal while keeping your, regulatory infrastructure in place and all the while actually root out the cause? What would be some things that you might do?
So me personally, I am very concerned about this. I've gotten a lot of comments from people saying, well, it's such a small number relative to, say, tobacco or alcohol. Why is this considered a crisis? To me, it's the fact that we don't know what the source of the problem is, and the rates at which the number of cases are climbing, and that it probably went unreported for so long, I do consider this a crisis. So I think it needs immediate action. And certainly the first is gathering information. I think that takes coordination across the states. I think the CDC has done a really great job of tracking the illnesses, releasing information, and hitting the appropriate note of caution without a panic, while minimizing unintended consequences. So I think we need to collect that information, make sure that people who use these products or are thinking about using the products have the information they need to make decisions, so they can substitute if they need to, they can avoid the likely source, which is the illicit market. And then we need coordination across states too. I know that all the other states in New England are dealing with this as well. And the more we're in coordination, the more we're able, I think, to track down the source and keep people as safe as possible.
Great solutions. Fantastic. So obviously, as we coordinate, we'll be able to root out this cause. It's not a great sign that the first moment that we do have an issue, we didn't react great. How can we kind of bring forth these thoughts to other policymakers in other states that haven't done this yet, so to make sure that they don't do this, to make sure that we know how to deal with crises as they crop up? If we're talking about a new market, and things do happen, things will happen along the way. What's a good message moving forward here?
Yeah, so I think the good news is Massachusetts is the only state that has taken this extreme measure, and that is the reason I've been so vocal about it, because I often in a drug panic, it becomes a follow the leader, and other states will try and do the same thing or even go beyond. And I think other states should consider what is going to happen to your patient population. You have tens of thousands of people who may have been relying on these products, never seen, a negative symptom. So how are you going to make sure they're supported if they don't have access? And then also just looking at nuance. So what is the difference between an e-cigarette? What is the difference between a dry vaporizer, something with oil and cartridge? And to make sure you're consulting cannabis experts and cannabis professionals who work with patients before you make decisions. That would be my message.
And so if I am one of those cannabis patients who is, considering an oil vape, and I've read about vitamin E acetate, how do I find out more than I might currently have about the actual product that I hold in my hand? How do I make sure this one's safe?
So I would talk to your medical professional. Probably whoever gave you your recommendation as a patient would be the place to start. And then I also think, as I mentioned, the Centers for Disease Control has been very forthcoming with the information that they have. So I would take a look at both of those.
What roles do producers have? What roles do retailers have?
Well, I happen to believe that legal businesses have an interest in not hurting their customers and patients. So I think they are being proactive. I think they should continue to be proactive in following all the evidence that's coming out and making sure that their products are as safe as possible. And of course, regulators have a major role in that as well.
And retailers, is there nuance there, or it's basically the same set of principles?
So in Massachusetts, we've sent out a bulletin about the ban, and we sent that to patients as well. If they have questions, I would actually direct them to the governor's office and to their medical professional. But if they have questions for the commission, of course, we're here for them.
Excellent, Shaleen. We're going to speak to you in good times and bad. And we won't call this a bad time. We will call this an opportunity.
An opportunity for learning, absolutely.
I mean, it is nothing but that. Make sure that you know what you're putting in your body. Make sure that you know what you're producing. Make sure that you know what you're selling. Make sure that everything that you're doing is legal.
It's probably, just as a last note, it is probably a good time for all of us to stop and think about the difference between the whole plant versus vaping products, CBD products, things where it's not so clear what might be in those products. It's probably a good opportunity for all consumers to think about that as well.
Cannabis can't hurt you. What we do to it can. And so there you have Shaleen Tuttle, Equal Access. Thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to catch up with you again. And hopefully it'll be talking about some other thing, but it might be talking about this still, you know? We'll see what happens.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you, Seth.